This is the Bob Cordaro Show on TV.
They fought for us, now he'll fight for you. The pursuit of justice and liberty. It's the Bob Cordaro Show on TV.
And now, Bob Cordaro.
Great good morning, everyone. Happy Sunday. My name is Bob Cordaro, and this is the Bob Cordaro Show on TV. I'm a native son of this region, born, raised, and returned. As many of you know, I do radio 5 days a week on WILK. Appointment radio, we call it, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And now we do this thing, the Bob Cordaro Show on TV. Each week, 11:30 a.m., right here on WNEP TV, Channel 16. Now, I love this area. This is home. And I love the people. From living in big cities around the country, I learned to appreciate this is the best place on the planet. And I feel the need for us to let each other know how great it is here. We need to believe it. I've been around you and known you all my life. You are great workers, innovators, business people. You're the best of mothers, fathers, friends, neighbors, and human beings. You are the greatest patriots, soldiers, citizens, and Americans. You are America. This won't be like the radio show I do every day, however. On WILK, we do a lot of politics, a lot of criticism, and a lot of opinions. For this TV show, however, we want to accentuate the positive, to feature those who have achieved and have, or want, connections to this region. So it's a whole different ballgame, the Bob Cordaro Show on TV. Today we switch things up a lot. My old friend, Dr. Bryan Frantz, wants to interview me. And I said yes, and we'll see if I regret it. My life is an open book, and now apparently an open interview. So let's see how Bryan does. So with the help of God, our families, our communities, and each other, let us begin.
And now, the Sunday Brunch Power Player of the Week on the Bob Cordaro Show.
So Bob, a lot of the viewers are wondering why I'm doing this interview of you. And I have to tell them that the reason I agreed to interview and wanted to interview you is that there was a rumor going around that you were going to interview yourself. And I thought, let me at least do it justice, and I will attempt this task. So, I've known you a long time. And I may be arguably one of the few people that is qualified to interview you. Maybe that, aside from your mother and father, who I love. So with that said, Bob, you've been a very visible figure in northeastern Pennsylvania. As long as I've known you, probably the better part of almost 50 years now. Yeah. So politics, legal area, media, entrepreneur, lightning rod at times, okay? And so I think that you've got quite an interesting story to tell. And I think our viewers really would like to know the full picture of Bob Cordaro. So with that said, I'd like to go back to, where we first met, really at the University of Rochester. And tell us a little bit about, before we get into that, tell us about your family, your mom and dad, your brothers.
We, both my parents, father from Dunmore, mother from Troop, father Italian, and some would argue Sicilian, which is supposedly not Italian, and mother Polish and Slovak from Troop. Her father was a coal miner. Her mother was a cleaning lady, and she became a piano teacher. My father started out as right from high school at a company called Rogers Trucking, as what they called the yard jockey, moving the trucks around, washing them, all that kind of thing. Remember the Teamsters? So we grew up working class, and it was magical. It truly was. I mean, I'm sure, my parents, no marriages, Ozzie and Harriet. no family is perfect, but I can't think of anything I would change for 1 second. I just can't. And I've been asked this question a lot of different times, a lot of different ways.
Mm-hmm. I know your parents. I mean,
yeah.
they're absolutely wonderful people. I've spent a lot of time with them through the years. Your dad's an avid Yankee fan, and I, enjoy always talking about that and hard work. And to this day, I don't think he's retired. I hope I'd be disappointed if he was.
Of course not.
I said you can't retire. He loves that. But how about your kid? Where are your children now?
Well, I've got 5 children, and I've got most of them back. My oldest son, he works with Alliance Capital, Michael. He's married. He's given me 2 granddaughters. Married to Melissa, the former Melissa Dempsey. Great people, smart kid. If I had any, I'd give him my money. When I get it, I'll give him some. But he does investment management, wealth management. He does his own podcast, which has been I've watched.
It's very good,
fabulous. And then I have twin sons, Peter, who is a Wilkes-Barre cop and a really good cop because he's worked in Dunmore, Pittston. He's worked around. And then my son Chris, who's he's a musician. He's cut 5 of his own albums. He can play any instrument. And he's working at Dunmore Lumber now, the family business. And then my daughter Anna, she's a colorist, a hairstylist, a makeup artist out in Sacramento, California. It's the only one we can't get back. And then my youngest son, Bobby, who is, I'd say fortunately, he's moving out to Denver to go work for a big law firm on business to business and marketing for them. So the kids have been great, and they've been through a lot. But they are just great people. They're great adults. They're adults that I'm truly proud of, no less than you.
Yeah, well, I've known them like you've known mine since they're little kids, and they really have grown up to be just fantastic human beings. And you have at least 1 grandchild that I know. Do you have more?
2 grandchildren, 2 granddaughters through Michael and Melissa.
Okay,
which
great.
is a great thing. And a grandson on the way this winter.
Okay.
So we've got the a year and a half and a baby going. It's fun. It's a lot of fun.
Oh, I'm glad that it's a great family for sure. And I agree with you. It was a magical time to grow up in northeastern Pennsylvania. Loved it. We still have some of the traditions, even now. We still hold Christmas time and all of those things that we did. It's fabulous. Remarkable. So I want to go back to Rochester for a second. We played football together. We have a lot of memories that way. But the thing I remember most about you, and actually enjoyed throughout our entire relationship, is the fact that you and I used to have fantastic conversations on a broad scope of topics. We'd talk about politics, history, government, sports, and they were fascinating conversations. And you were so well read. Tell us a little bit about how when you were at Rochester, who were some of the professors that sort of maybe had an influence on you? And I know there were some pretty significant individuals, and who sort of maybe do we call it a mentor or took you under their wing, or however you want to describe it? Who had an influence on you that sort of led to that next step in your?
Well, it's funny, Brian, in this way. There were so many people. We were fortunate to have so many, mostly football players, but people from this area that were there. Mm-hmm. We had built-in mentors.
We did.
We didn't really have to rely on professors so much, but
True.
There's names that people wouldn't know.
Right.
But there was one particular professor by the name of Jesse Moore, who did take me under his wing, and who looked out for me, and just he tried to promote me, and he was the guy who made sure I was Phi Beta Kappa, the honor society. He was the guy who he made sure that I got magna cum laude and had a part in the graduation and everything. So I'd say Jesse Moore was one of the ones I was closest to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And why law school, Bob? I mean, you had and have such a diverse interest in many areas, many subjects. Why law school?
Well, I was interested in so many things. And a lawyer can do anything and participate in any kind of business, any realm that there is. And I originally wanted to be a physician. And then I took chemistry in high school. My professor, Whammer Mecca, made sure that I was not going to be a doctor. And he told me that. He says, you won't be a doctor. He says, I'll make sure of it. And he was right. And I said, I can't do this. You know, I watched you toil over organic chemistry and all that. And I've said, that was a wise choice for me, that's for sure.
You don't know what you were missing. It's riveting. I still read it on Friday nights.
Sure.
I can't help myself.
Sure.
So
I watched you read it on Friday nights in Rochester
right.
while I was out having a blast.
good time, And we had our good times there, no doubt about it. Yeah. But again, so now you go to the University of Pennsylvania, a very elite law school, arguably one of the top law schools in the United States. So tell us about your time there. Who was influential there? Again, professors, et cetera.
I made some good friends there. One of my best friends, Bryan and I hung around. I knew so many. Again, being from this area, it's unique. There were so many people in Philadelphia, yourself included. That was your friendship base, almost no matter where you were. Right. And but I still was able to make a lot of good friends at Penn.
You know what I remember?
It was a great atmosphere.
What I remember most about our time in Philadelphia together is Sunday evening when you used to come over to, where Linda and I were, and you'd eat us out of house and home. And then we would look out the window and watch you go into Wendy's to get a bag to walk back to. Okay,
mostly, yeah, McDonald's.
To walk back to West Philadelphia. So anyway. I got to get even with you for those dinners somehow. But so again, just kind of take us through Penn Law School and
Penn was,
you said that it was a unique. What was unique about it? Why did you want to go to Penn? And what did you take away from it?
The important part to me about Penn is that they focused on you thinking like a lawyer. They basically said, look, you're already accomplished. We don't need to torture you and kick you out of class and this person, the old law school story, look to your right, look to your left, one or two of the people that you're looking at won't be here at the end of the year.
Right.
They didn't play any of those games. There was no class rank. There was none of those things. And that was an atmosphere to me to learn how to think like a lawyer, to learn how to think a different, more analytical way.
I know,
and I enjoyed it.
I know you've always had a keen.
Relative to.
I understand.
Yeah.
How much you can enjoy, but I know you've always had a keen interest in business, and did you at that point in your development in law school did you start to gain business law or business courses that you could dovetail? Could you
But I was mostly
It
was when I look back on it, I say, boy, that was a mistake because they started the joint degree with Wharton and the law school, and I was invited to participate in it, and I couldn't imagine another year of school. It would have been 4 years instead of the 3 the law school was, and I didn't do it. I did business classes at Penn, but I was overly focused on politics at that time.
I see.
And when I look back on it, I say, well, how crazy was that? But that was where my mindset was.
Well, yes and no, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But okay, so you finish law school. You're interested in politics. You sort of, and I know some of the discussions that we had, even at that time when I was in dental school, you and I used to have fantastic discussions about, past presidents and politics and so forth. And I still like to tease you that I think you're a little too hard on Lyndon Johnson, but that's another story. But anyway, so you graduate from law school, very top of your class. I know you did well. I know you'd like.
I wouldn't say it that way, but
well,
okay.
I can. So I know, and I saw how hard you worked, and so you wound up in a law firm in, was it Los Angeles, I believe?
During the course of. And actually it goes back to Rochester. When I was in Rochester, they had a unique program with a guy named Richard Fenno, another mentor that I sort of overlooked. And we worked full-time on Capitol Hill. So I was full-time on Capitol Hill in 1982. Tremendous learning experience. I then student taught at a local high school, St. Thomas Aquinas in Rochester in the fall. So I had 2 semesters of almost real-world experience while at Rochester, which I think were just tremendous. And then when I was at Penn, I worked in Philadelphia the first year for Dilworth Paxson, Governor Casey's firm. And the second year, I worked in Los Angeles under a guy named Dick Reardon, who eventually became the mayor of LA. But it was a very business and venture capital oriented law firm. So I had great experiences through college and law school that almost, really prepared me for life. And you got to live other places too. You got to live in DC, you got to live in LA, you got to live in New York. So you experienced a lot of things that they did 2 things. They made me enjoy those areas, but they made me appreciate home. And I had a joke when I was at Reardon McKenzie in Los Angeles. They wanted to offer me a position, and I said, I think I'm going to go home to Scranton. And they'd say, what? You're going to leave LA to go to Scranton? And LA was great at that time. Nothing like the dystopia we read about now. And I used to say, I'm going to go back to Scranton because I'll be damned if I'm going to spend my vacations there. That was my joke. Right. And I came back, and I just don't have any regrets about that all these many years later.
So did you ever, this is something I've actually always wondered about, contemplating, thinking about your career. Did you ever give serious thought to staying, in Los Angeles?
Oh, yes.
And
Los Angeles and Philly.
What would that career path have been?
You go to a huge firm, and I was with them, and you at that time, a partnership track might be 5 to 7 years. You become a partner, you work like a dog, all that kind of thing. And I had always had in my mind from when I was young to sort of be a storefront lawyer, a ham and egg lawyer, a general practice guy. And that's what I ended up doing. And I mean, I was the only one in my class to do it. So I was influenced a little bit to go in that direction. But at the same time, I went back to what I had always thought would be my goal, which is to be a lawyer here in Scranton, Northeast Pennsylvania.
Okay, so, and again, to go back to our days in Rochester, you and I used to always, part of our conversation is, we couldn't wait to get back home. We always wanted to try and have a positive impact on the area in whatever way we possibly, wherever we wound up in our careers. So, I wasn't really surprised, that you wound up coming back here. You'd come back, I remember, I think we both opened up our practices around the same time, late 80s, early 90s, something like that. And you were quickly following your passion at that time that was being developed at the University of Pennsylvania in politics. So
to my great regret, but nevertheless, it's what I
pursued. To be fair, Bob, you did accomplish quite a bit in politics, and so for the area. And so what I would like to have you do is, if you don't mind, talk to us about your evolution in politics. How did it start? What were the different positions that you held?
Well, I ran for U.S. Congress because there was a sect of the Democrat Party, Lyndon LaRouche sect, who was running a candidate who would have been the first national candidate from the Lyndon LaRouche wing of the party. This is 1988. So they asked me to run in the primary, and I did. And I said that, I want to tell people I'm not running in the fall. I just started a radio station. I don't know let me think how many kids, but I had at least one kid at the time, more to come. And I thought I can't afford to do this politics thing. And the powers that be told me, well, you've got to tell them you're running against Joe McDade in the fall. And I said, well, if I tell them I'm running, I will. I said, but I'd rather not. They said, no, you got to tell them you're running. I said, then I will. And I don't know if they didn't believe me or what it was, but
Right.
I said, you got to do what you say in the main.
Mhm.
And I did. And a lot of them were not happy with me in the Democrat Party. I ran as a Democrat, conservative, but as a Democrat. But that taught me a lot, that experience, because you're going out to these rural counties and meeting people that very different lifestyles than I had even here, never mind in Philadelphia or LA or DC. It was a great learning experience, a great development process. If there was any discomfort with strangers or speaking or anything, that's all gone at that point. But I decided at that point that that politics wasn't for me. I didn't like it.
And what year was that?
1988.
Okay.
1988. So friends of mine had asked me to do solicitorships in Dunmore, so you're involved but not totally involved in politics. And then at some point, I was selling my radio stations, and I said, okay, I got to give something back. And so I was going to run for office. I thought the most effective office that I could run for to help the most people was Lackawanna County Commissioner. And I meant not just for Lackawanna County, but for the whole area. And so I did. And then a bit of a scandal broke out, unfair and all that, not about me, but my running mate and Tommy Harrison. Very unfair to him, but because we had a newspaper that sort of had their own position. And they destroyed them. We lost. Okay. I'm minority commissioner now. You do your best to,
Well, let me ask you this, Bob. In essence, you're back in politics, and so local politics. What were some of the things at that time that you wanted to achieve, that you wanted to be effective at and get done for Northeastern Pennsylvania?
Well, I thought, and we ended up being able to do it, I thought that education and the arts were absolutely critical to economic development, and that they were important in and of themselves. So we did that. And I thought that economic development itself was critical to this area. Jobs, real companies, encouraging locally owned companies as opposed to attracting out-of-town companies. And when I became majority commissioner, we did focus on all those things. I think we had an impact. The arts and culture fee continues. We helped to save the Scranton Cultural Center, that beautiful facility, because they had great boards, they had great people, but they had no resources. And we did the same thing at the Everhart Museum with this arts and culture fee. I shouldn't say people of Lackawanna County paid it.
Of course, yeah. Right.
But there were a lot of accomplishments because we had a really incredible team. You look around the area, and we started the mural program. And you see murals around that eliminate blight and make things better. And so there was a lot of initiatives. We brought in the Yankees. So there were a lot of great things.
How are we doing on time, Bob?
We still got it. We only have a couple minutes, actually.
Okay, so unfortunately, I want to move fast forward.
No, feel free.
Then there's the prison time, and I don't want to skirt around that. And I think
it's hard to skirt around it. It was 9.5 years.
Okay. So briefly tell us about that.
Well, the positive side is I had a complete prison experience. Yeah. I was at every place from penitentiary down to a camp. I was at 11 different prisons. I was in transport, which is the toughest part of prison, being moved from one facility to another. I got in trouble in prison. I did, whatever. But there's nothing of value there, except I read a lot. I hadn't had time to read a lot of classics. I read the Bible cover to cover. I made a lot of friends that are going to be friends for life. So when I take away prison experience, it's an experience no one would want to have,
right,
but that is invaluable in a lot of ways. And then the friendships that I have, because remember, the people I hung around with were not the rats. They were the people who stood up, and you can always rely on them. you could always trust them. So I came out of prison with some great friends, and some that I'll be interviewing here about their life and their prison experiences. So.
Well, you certainly paid your debt to society.
Well, I look at it this way. I said, look, I fought them.
Yep.
I wasn't guilty in my, well, not in my view, I wasn't guilty. I've got 1,000 pages of briefs that show it. My friend Bryan Kelly got involved in pro bono and helped me with that. We were not successful.
Yeah.
But I look at it this way. I'm either not guilty or I paid my price. I don't care. Whichever way you want to play it, meaning the other people, that's okay with me.
Okay. The thing that I find fascinating, so you do that. And, you come out and right away you get involved in radio and, a successful radio show.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to know when you made the transition from prison to now reacclimating yourself into society and into business, shall we say, the radio business. What were some of the things that you had to overcome, let's say from a technological standpoint? Tell us about that.
I got to tell you, Bryan, and it surprises me to even say this as I'm talking to you. I didn't have any issues on I looked at prison and that experience. I'm part observer, part participant. And so many people like yourself kept in touch with me, visited, all that kind of thing that I just sort of, I don't know. The day my 2 sons took me home, I was home. I felt like I'd never left.
Yeah. So, just for example, Zoom, things of that nature, you quickly acclimated, picked it up.
I watched the Jetsons.
Okay. Perfect. So, I know we're a little bit limited on time now, so I
get to tell you when we stop.
That's perfect. So let me ask you this. We're doing a television show. We've had some very interesting guests on. The radio show is successful. What is Bob Cordaro? Where do we go from here, Bob? Where do you go from here? What are your dreams? What would you like to accomplish now? Not only for yourself and for your family, but also Northeastern Pennsylvania.
I'll give you a short answer.
Sure.
I have a deep belief in God. I have a belief in heaven. That's what drives me. And all I have to do is the right thing, no matter what the circumstances are I'm presented with. And if I do that, that's the most important thing. It's simple. It's not easy. It's simple.
Well, I'm very proud of you. I'm proud of, not only your past, what you've been through, but I'm also proud of where you are today, professionally and with your family. And I wish you all the success in the world, Bob.
Thank you. And I get to say on my own, because it is my own show still, that's it for this week. We'll be back at 11:30 next week on WNEP TV with another edition of the Bob Cordaro Show on TV.